Welcome to the Diary of the Pan African Preacher. The biblical wisdom to drink water from your own cistern reminds nations that true prosperity begins by cultivating and investing in their own resources rather than depending exclusively on outsiders. For Africa, this means harnessing its own capital, institutions, and human potential to finance development from within and build a future rooted in self reliance and shared prosperity. Africa possesses enormous financial potential, yet the continent continues to struggle with major infrastructure deficits, limited industrialization, and insufficient social development. The paradox is that a significant portion of African capital is not being used to advance the continent itself, but is instead invested in foreign financial institutions that offer relatively low returns. This raises an increasingly important question. Why are African savings and pensions not financing Africa's future? Our African sages warn us, if you do not build your own house, someone will use you to build theirs. This statement perfectly reflects the current situation in many African countries. Central banks and sovereign wealth funds often allocate their foreign reserves to safe assets such as US Treasury bonds. These instruments typically generate modest returns, while African nations are forced to borrow money for development at far higher costs. In practice, this means that capital leaves the continent only to return later in the form of expensive debt carrying high interest rates. Such a model weakens liquidity within local economies, increases dependence on foreign lenders, and limits long-term development opportunities. Instead of strengthening local industry, infrastructure, or regional trade, African resources end up supporting economic growth in other parts of the world. One possible solution would be stronger involvement from regional financial institutions such as the African Development Bank and the Afri-Exim Bank. These institutions could create safe, credible investment vehicles specifically designed for African central banks and pension funds. Examples include infrastructure bonds, industrial development funds, and continental stabilization facilities. Even if only a small portion of Africa's reserves were invested within the continent, the impact could be transformative. Financing could be directed towards roads, ports, power grids, railways, and modern industrial centers. This would strengthen intra-African trade, create millions of jobs, and reduce dependence on foreign financial assistance. Central banks are naturally conservative institutions and will not move significant capital into development assets without strong guarantees of safety and liquidity. They point to political risk, currency instability, corruption, and weak regulatory structures. For this reason, building strong institutions, transparent governance system and regional guarantee mechanisms is essential. Africa already possesses the capital needed to finance its own development. The greatest challenge is not a lack of money, but rather creating a system capable of keeping that capital within the continent and directing it towards the prosperity of future generations. Ashe.